The revelations for Thursday, February 12th. On the bold and the beautiful promise, a collision of love and fury. Of vows whispered in silk-draped halls and accusations hurled with trembling hands. At the heart of the storm stands Ivy Forrester, portrayed by Melissa Dillon, whose calculated interference threatens to unravel more than one fragile connection, while Carter Walton and Daphne Rose rush headlong toward an impulsive wedding. Will Spencer finds himself drawn into a web of manipulation that leaves him questioning loyalty, trust, and the true nature of the woman he once believed he understood. The morning light filtering through the grand windows of Forrester Creations seems almost ceremonial, as though the building itself senses the significance of what is about to unfold. In the showroom, bolts of satin and lace shimmer under the chandeliers, casting reflections that dance across polished marble floors. Daphne stands before a towering mirror, her breath shallow, her fingers grazing the intricate beading of the wedding gown she has just tried on. The dress fits as if it had been waiting for her all along. An embodiment of elegance, innocence, and a promise of permanence. Yet beneath the delicate fabric lies a heart racing not only with anticipation but with disbelief. Carter's shocking proposal has left her reeling. He does not merely want to marry her, he wants to marry her immediately. Carter's urgency is not born of recklessness but of conviction. He has endured enough hesitation in his life, enough second-guessing and half-measures. For him, love must be decisive. Standing in that showroom, watching Daphne's reflection tremble with emotion, he feels an overwhelming clarity. Life is too uncertain, too fragile to postpone happiness. He wants their union sealed before doubt can creep in, before circumstances or outside influences can interfere. His proposal is less a question than a declaration. He chooses her, now and without reservation. Daphne's reaction is a complex tapestry of joy and fear. She has longed for certainty, for someone who would see her not as an accessory to ambition but as a partner in a shared future. Yet the speed of Carter's insistence unsettles her. Marriage is not merely a celebration, it is a surrender of solitude, a merging of destinies. In the silence that follows his proposal, she confronts her own vulnerability. Does she trust this momentum? Or does she fear the consequences of rushing into a promise that cannot be undone? Around them, the Forrester family prepares to fulfill their roles with solemn enthusiasm. Ridge Forrester stands ready to honor his commitment as best man, his presence lending the ceremony a gravitas that only experience can provide. At his side will be Brooke Logan Forrester, whose history with love, its triumphs and catastrophes alike, adds a poignant undertone to the day. They have both seen how quickly passion can ignite and how fiercely it can burn. Watching Carter and Daphne, they cannot help but reflect on their own journey, on the delicate balance between impulse and endurance. Steffi Forrester Finnegan, radiant and resolute, accepts her role as maid of honor with characteristic determination. She believes in bold choices, in seizing happiness without apology. Arriving at Forrester Creations with Finn at her side, she brings an air of fierce loyalty. To her, Daphne deserves this moment of joy, and Carter's decisiveness feels like a testament to sincerity rather than folly. Finn, ever the steady presence, observes quietly, aware that weddings often mask undercurrents invisible to those intoxicated by celebration. Eric Forrester and Donna Logan Forrester are among the final guests to arrive. Their entrance a reminder of legacy and continuity. Eric's measured gaze takes in every detail, the floral arrangements, the hushed anticipation, the tremor in Carter's posture. Donna's warmth softens the atmosphere, yet even she senses the charged energy that accompanies such spontaneity. Zende Forrester Dominguez, entrusted with officiating the ceremony, prepares himself for the gravity of uniting two lives. His voice will soon pronounce a commitment that cannot be retracted with a simple apology. The ceremony unfolds with a surprising fluidity. Words are exchanged not with theatrical grandeur but with earnest conviction. Carter's vow carries the weight of determination. Daphne's response, though touched by lingering hesitation, resonates with genuine affection. When Zende pronounces them husband and wife, applause ripples through the room, and for a fleeting moment, the world narrows to the glow of shared triumph. They have done it, they have stepped boldly into the future. Yet elsewhere, another narrative darkens the horizon. Will Spencer, restless and increasingly suspicious, seeks answers from Dylan. Her confession, that she cannot remain his friend because of Ivy, strikes him as absurd at first. He cannot comprehend how Ivy could wield such influence over someone else's choices. His confusion gives way to disbelief as Dylan reveals the truth: Ivy blackmailed her. The revelation detonates with quiet devastation. Dylan recounts how Ivy, misinterpreting moments she observed outside Will's beach house on the night Electra was in San Francisco, constructed a narrative of impropriety. From those fragments, Ivy issued an ultimatum: Dylan must fabricate a story about a job offer elsewhere and leave town. Or Ivy would expose supposed misconduct to Elektra. The cruelty of the demand lies not merely in its content but in its calculated precision. Ivy exploited vulnerability, wielding reputation as a weapon. Dylan's voice trembles as she admits she complied, at least partially. She lied as Ivy instructed, weaving a false opportunity to justify her departure. Yet she remained in Los Angeles, unwilling to abandon her life entirely at Ivy's command. The shame of deception battles with the indignation of coercion. She feels both complicit and wronged, trapped between guilt and resentment. Will's reaction is volcanic. Anger surges through him, not only at Ivy's manipulation but at his own failure to detect it sooner. He recalls conversations colored by Ivy's subtle insinuations. Moments when her concern seemed excessive, her involvement intrusive. Now those memories rearrange themselves into a pattern of interference. He cannot tolerate the idea that someone would distort reality to control those around him. Determination hardens within him like cooling steel. Ivy, now working at Il Giardino thanks to Dickie Sharp, believes her actions justified. In her mind, she acted to protect Elektra from potential betrayal, to safeguard the fragile trust within a relationship already tested by distance and misunderstanding. She convinces herself that her ultimatum was a necessary measure, a preventative strike against greater harm. Yet beneath that rationalization lurks a more possessive impulse, a need to assert influence, to shape outcomes according to her own moral calculus. When Will confronts her, the air between them crackles with accusation. He does not merely chastise her for overstepping, he demands accountability. His fury is fueled by the recognition that Ivy's interference has distorted lives, that her perception of righteousness has inflicted real damage. Ivy, cornered yet defiant, prepares to justify herself once more. She insists that she acted in Elektra's best interest. That silence would have been a greater betrayal. The conflict extends beyond personal grievance, it becomes a clash of philosophies. Will believes in transparency, in confronting issues openly rather than manipulating them from the shadows. Ivy believes in preemptive control, in steering events away from perceived disaster. Their argument is not only about Dylan but about the boundaries of loyalty and the ethics of intervention. As the newlyweds bask in their triumph, unaware of the tempest brewing elsewhere, the juxtaposition is stark. One union forged in urgency, another relationship threatened by secrecy. The Forrester world, so often defined by glamour and spectacle, reveals once again its undercurrent of volatility. Happiness and heartbreak coexist within the same gilded walls. Ivy's final move looms ominously. She intends to update Elektra with all the unflattering details concerning Dylan, convinced that full disclosure will vindicate her actions. Whether this revelation will fortify Elektra's trust or fracture it irreparably remains uncertain. What is certain is that Ivy refuses to retreat quietly. In the end, Thursday's episode promises not merely a wedding but a reckoning. Carter and Daphne's spontaneous vows symbolize hope, a belief that love, seized boldly, can overcome hesitation. Yet Will's rage and Ivy's justifications remind us that good intentions, when twisted by fear or possessiveness, can corrode the very bonds they claim to protect. As the credits roll, viewers are left suspended between celebration and confrontation, aware that in this world, every declaration of love casts a shadow, and every attempt to shield the truth risks exposing something far more destructive. This week on The Bold and the Beautiful, the battlefield is not a boardroom, nor a courtroom, nor even the gilded runway of a fashion show. It is something far more intimate and therefore far more dangerous. The fragile, combustible territory of family loyalty. At the center of the coming storm stands Steffi Forrester, a daughter whose sense of betrayal runs so deep that she must find someone to blame for it. Her mother, Taylor Hayes, has chosen Deacon Sharp over the expectations, traditions, and emotional allegiances that have long defined the Forrester clan. To Steffi, that choice feels like a wound. And wounds, in this world, are rarely left untreated. They demand a target. Conveniently, perhaps tragically, Hope Logan stands within reach. Hope has never intended to become collateral damage in someone else's heartbreak. She has always seen herself as an optimist, a believer in second chances and sweeping declarations of love. It is both her greatest strength and her most consistent flaw. She views the world through the lens of possibility rather than consequence. And in doing so, she often walks straight into emotional minefields without recognizing the warning signs. When she visited Taylor and gently encouraged her to follow her heart, Hope believed she was offering liberation, not provocation. She thought she was helping free her father from the toxic shadow of Sheila Carter, whose presence in Deacon's life has long been a source of unease. In Hope's mind, nudging Taylor toward Deacon was not manipulation, it was destiny correcting itself. But destiny, as Steffi sees it, has a different shape. When Steffi caught Hope visiting Taylor and subtly championing the idea of a romance between her father and Hope's father, the reaction was instantaneous and volcanic. To Steffi, it was not a sweet gesture of romantic encouragement. It was interference. It was intrusion. It was yet another instance of Hope inserting herself into the fragile architecture of Forrester family matters. Steffi has always carried a fierce protectiveness toward her mother. Taylor's history is littered with heartbreak, particularly where Ridge Forrester is concerned. And Steffi has long believed that her mother deserves stability, not scandal. Deacon Sharp, in Steffi's estimation, represents instability personified. He is a man with a complicated past, a man who drifts between redemption and relapse, between loyalty and chaos. Watching Taylor gravitate toward him feels to Steffi like watching someone step willingly toward a cliff. What unsettles Steffi most is not simply the relationship itself, but the speed and intensity with which it progresses. Taylor seems almost indifferent to the fallout, as though she has reached a point in her life where she refuses to sacrifice her own happiness for anyone's approval. That independence should be admirable. Yet to Steffi, it feels like abandonment. If Taylor chooses Deacon without hesitation, what does that say about her devotion to her children? What does it say about the sacrifices Steffi believes she herself has made for family? When Ridge attempts to intervene, his efforts falter. He approaches Taylor not with condemnation but with concern, attempting to reason with her about the optics, the risks, the inevitable backlash. Yet Taylor, fortified by her own longing, remains resolute. The more Ridge questions her judgment, the more she perceives his objections as hypocrisy. After all, Ridge has never been immune to impulsive love. His history with Brooke Logan stands as living proof. Why, then, should Taylor deny herself the same freedom? Steffi watches this exchange with mounting dread. The foundation she once believed unshakable now trembles. If Ridge cannot sway Taylor, if the voice of shared history cannot pull her back, then who can? In that moment, Hope's earlier encouragement looms large in Steffi's mind. It becomes easy, almost necessary, to assign her blame. Without Hope's meddling, Steffi reasons, perhaps Taylor would have hesitated. Perhaps doubt would have had time to settle. Hope becomes not just an observer but an instigator. The confrontation between Steffi and Hope at Forrester Creations is inevitable. The fashion house, usually a place of artistry and ambition, transforms into a stage for simmering resentment. When they cross paths, there is no polite preamble. Steffi's composure cracks under the weight of frustration. She challenges Hope's motives, questioning whether this so-called encouragement was truly about love or about eliminating Sheila from Deacon's orbit. The accusation stings because it strikes at a truth Hope does not entirely deny. Yes, she wants her father free from Sheila's influence. Yes, she envisions a version of his life that is cleaner, safer, more respectable. But she does not see that desire as selfish. She sees it as protective. Hope's internal conflict begins to surface. She never intended to ignite a feud. She thought she was offering Taylor empowerment, not destabilization. Yet as Steffi's words sharpen, Hope begins to recognize the unintended consequences of her interference. Romantic idealism, she realizes, can be reckless when it collides with generational trauma. Still, she refuses to apologize for believing in love. To do so would feel like renouncing a core part of herself. Steffi, however, is not in the mood for philosophical debates about destiny. Her anger demands action. And in the intricate ecosystem of Forrester Creations, power is never abstract. It is measurable. It is enforceable. Hope's professional vulnerability becomes impossible to ignore. Hope for the future, once a beacon of innovation and youthful optimism, now teeters on the brink of collapse. Funding is precarious. Confidence is fragile. A single strategic decision could either resurrect the line or bury it permanently. The temptation to weaponize that vulnerability is almost irresistible. Steffi does not see herself as vindictive, she sees herself as protective. If Hope interferes in her family's emotional affairs, why should she be shielded from professional consequences? In Steffi's mind, drawing a line at Forrester Creations is not retaliation. It is boundary enforcement. Yet beneath that justification lies something more primal, hurt. If her mother's happiness feels like a betrayal, then someone must bear the weight of that betrayal. Hope, by virtue of proximity and provocation, becomes the easiest candidate. Meanwhile, Hope remains astonishingly unaware of the magnitude of the resentment building against her. She continues to press Deacon gently, urging him to consider a future free from Sheila's chaos. She imagines Taylor as a stabilizing force, someone who could anchor her father's life in respectability. What Hope fails to grasp is that in trying to engineer happiness, she risks reducing other people's agency. Taylor's choice must be her own, not the product of Hope's subtle persuasion. And Steffi's loyalty to her mother cannot be dismissed as mere possessiveness. It is rooted in years of watching Taylor endure heartbreak. The irony is devastating. Hope believes she is mending fractures. Steffi believes she is defending her family. Both women act from love, yet their expressions of that love collide violently. As Taylor and Deacon grow closer, the whispers intensify. The relationship, once tentative, now seems defiant. Taylor appears almost liberated by her willingness to disregard judgment. There is a new lightness in her demeanor, a refusal to apologize for choosing joy. But joy, when pursued without caution, can leave collateral damage in its wake. Steffi watches the transformation with dread. Every smile from her mother feels like a step further away from the stability she once cherished. Ridge's failure to redirect Taylor deepens Steffi's isolation. If her father cannot restore balance, then perhaps she must. The idea of retaliating against Hope through corporate maneuvering solidifies not as an impulse but as a strategy. If Hope's line falters, if Hope feels the pressure of professional insecurity, perhaps she will reconsider meddling in matters beyond her jurisdiction. Yet revenge, even when rationalized as justice, carries its own cost. Steffi risks alienating not only Hope but the delicate equilibrium within Forrester Creations. The company thrives on collaboration, on the merging of visions. To undermine hope for the future for personal reasons could fracture more than a program. It could fracture trust. Hope, for her part, may soon realize that romantic intervention comes with repercussions. Her habit of stepping into other people's love stories, driven by empathy and idealism, has once again placed her at the epicenter of conflict. She must confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes love does not require a catalyst. Sometimes it requires restraint. As the week unfolds, the tension thickens. Steffi's resentment simmers beneath polished professionalism. Hope's optimism flickers in the face of mounting hostility. Taylor's newfound independence challenges long-standing loyalties. Deacon, caught between past and possibility, moves forward with cautious hope. And in the background, the fate of Hope for the future hangs like a fragile thread. Vulnerable to a single decisive cut. The question that lingers is not merely whether Steffi will retaliate, but whether she will recognize the cost of doing so. Will she strike at Hope's professional weak point to avenge her mother's romantic defiance? Or will she confront the deeper insecurity fueling her anger? The fear that love, once again, is slipping beyond her control? In this world, every choice reverberates. Encouragement can be mistaken for manipulation. Protection can morph into punishment. And love, however sincere, can ignite wars when it trespasses on another's sense of belonging. As viewers brace for the next chapter, one truth becomes unmistakable. In the Forrester universe, the line between devotion and destruction is perilously thin, and crossing it may change everything.